G'day, my name's James Baldwin and welcome to Oz F1. It's really great to have your company here for another recap episode, this time for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Of course, an incredibly shocking start to the Grand Prix and we're all very glad that Romain is okay. Stick with us as we talk about the incident itself, we'll talk about the TV broadcast and team-by-team analysis as we always do. Now, fair warning, this podcast was recorded straight after the race, which means it was 4 o'clock in the morning. So we had a bit of fun, but we might look a bit sleep deprived if you're watching us on YouTube. But let's get into it. Good morning. It's good to be here at 22 past 4 in the morning as we record this episode of Oz F1, and I'm here with the boys, Tommy T, Thomas J, Camp, for what was an incredibly boring race. It turns out that this is the podcast that we record immediately after the race. It's like, yes, this is going to be fantastic. We're all getting up early. We've all got things to do today, which meant that we couldn't find another time. And of course, we had a red flag on the first lap. And it took an hour.
I must admit, I know how Romain Grosjean feels now. You've got a plan, you're going to stick to it, and then it just fails.
Oh, man.
Flatly fails. Yeah.
Yes, you and Romain Grosjean, they're obviously the two people who suffered the most through this Formula 1 weekend. Campy. Boys, look, let's chat with the couple of bits of paddock news, of course, before we get into talking about the race and what a beginning of the race. It then ended up being quite boring. But let's talk about a couple of people. First off, let's talk about the guy who was set for a podium, but of course didn't get there because of a failure with his car, Sergio Perez. Look, this is a sad time for him, soon to be without a drive, really, in Formula One. Tommy T, can you still believe that the guy who was running around third still doesn't have a seat next year?
I don't get it. I'm sure he's going to get the opportunity. Whether he takes it is the other thing. He's kind of come out and said that it's Red Bull seat or I'm going to take a year off. Like, he's not really interested in that Haas seat. That is not really available, but it's probably available if you asked. I don't know. It's looking more like, from what we're hearing, Red Bull are going to stick with Albon.
Yeah, Campy, you predicted this last time we spoke, and Tommy T and I were like, nah, surely not.
Surely not.
Can you stop being a prophet?
Look, it's a real shame, isn't it? I mean, the guy was unlucky tonight not to get a podium. That would have cemented their lock on the Constructors' Championship for third as well, so that was a shame for the team. But for Checo, he's driving as good as he's ever driven in his career today, as we speak. He's probably in the best car that he's ever been in, other than that McLaren he was in for one season. Yep. But, yeah, real shame. I just can't believe that he probably won't be on the grid next year, and good on him for calling it.
Yeah.
Good on him for saying, hey, I'm not going to race if I'm not racing for a top team, because he deserves that drive ahead of Albon. He deserves to be on the grid by probably more than 50% of the drivers on the grid as well. So, yeah, good on him. And it'll probably be his last race, because let's face it, you try and take a sabbatical and move on for a year, it generally doesn't, come back the year later. Generally doesn't happen. Ocon's the exception to the rule. And Alonso, he's a two-time world champion. He has the ability to make demands and come back. But Checo's He's not aligned to a team. He's not aligned to an engine manufacturer. He's not in like a Mercedes program, a Renault program, Ferrari program, or the Red Bull program. So it'll be tougher for him to get in than anyone else. Yeah,
and look, obviously we're seeing Hulkenberg trying his best to get back in as well. Since his last fill-in for Lance Stroll, it seems a lot of the conversations have been going quiet. In saying that, however, Haas is going to announce, and Gunter came out earlier this week to say that they're going to announce their driver lineup before the season finishes. Whether or not he does that as a result of what happened with Romain, who knows? But it's looking pretty likely, isn't it, that Mick Schumacher is going to step into that Haas F1 seat. But potentially Hulkenberg takes that as well, because there hasn't really been a lot of that connection, has there, between Red Bull and Hulkenberg in the last couple of weeks, like there has been with Perez. Tommy, what do you think of Hulkenberg being able to step back in?
We want to see him. We know he's a great driver. Whether, I don't know, he wants to go to a Haas. I think at this stage, year off, he's going to take anything that's there. But we want to see him in a top car.
It's interesting, isn't it, Campy? Because you just said, Sergio's called it and saying that he doesn't want to go for a team like Williams, even though his camp was spreading those rumours only a couple of weeks ago. Hulk doesn't seem to be that kind of person, though. He sort of seems to want to get back into the sport, and he kind of deserves a seat. Maybe not as much as Perez now, though. Considering...
Look, Hulk's great, and he should be on the grid before 50% of the drivers on the grid at the moment again. So it's a shame that he's not in F1, but hey, it is F1. If he wants to come back and take that Haas seat, then do it if he wants to race in F1. But if he does, his stocks are going to be way down, and his chances of getting in a top seat again are slim to none. I think the only thing that is keeping him in the fold in the Red Bull conversation, although he admits those conversations have died down in the last month, is that the Verstappen side of the camp would prefer Hulk to Perez. But this is F1. It's just probably time for him to move on. I reckon he'd probably get a drive for the next 2 weeks with Grosjean's injuries. It sounds like he's got some broken ribs. It's all speculative. Like the race literally finished 5 minutes ago, so we still haven't heard anything from the broadcast. But I would suggest that Grosjean might be in a state to race, so we've probably seen his last one, and maybe Hulk steps in for 2, gets an idea where the team's at, and makes a decision from there. But you've got Hulk and Perez wanting that Red Bull spot, and it doesn't look like Red Bull's going to give up on Albon. So who knows?
And I mean, he got a podium this weekend, but only because of Sergio's failure with the car. So it's, we've said it time and time again, he's had plenty of opportunities to shine. He even put it in the wall over the weekend as well. Anyway, that it sort of doesn't make much sense to us here at Oz F1 about that. Okay, well, let's talk about the beginning of the race before we actually get into, Tommy T, your broadcast review, and of course the race as we talk about team by team, because we need to talk about what actually happened here with Romain Grosjean. We were, and shout out to you if you're listening and you engage with us on the Discord channel, you will know that there was a lot of what the hell is going on. As soon as that fireball happened, I think everyone almost just stopped, didn't they? It's hard to believe the Formula One in 2020 that something like that would happen. Campy, your initial thoughts on everything that was going on?
I remember saying it just like, we're done, we're not going to race tonight. I'm so stoked that the guy got out of that car in the flaming fireball that it was. I didn't, seeing it and seeing the replays, I was shocked that he got out of it. So if I was him, I'm going to buy a lotto ticket or do what Bottas did, go to church and sort yourself out before your next race. Look, seriously, that was... I've never seen anything like that. I mean, the car literally snapped in half, and I think they talked about this on the broadcast too. I think the debate about the halo is over now.
Oh, totally.
You could see from the wreckage and what remained of the steel bollard that he crashed into. You could see where that halo cut out a section for him to pass through. Yeah, I mean, if the halo wasn't there, his head would have taken the full contact of that. As to the car splitting in half, it looked like the engine mounts completely snapped off upon impact, which is what caused the car to break in half. And they think, speculatively, of course, what happened was the engine sliced through the fuel cell in which the fuel's kept. Now those fuel cells are they're literally like a big rubber ball that are, they're almost impossible to penetrate. I remember seeing a documentary on it a couple of years ago, just one of those Sky F1 10-minute things before a race, and they literally mould it around the engine and however they want it to fit so they can get the maximum, aerodynamic chassis around it. But they're so thick, they're like a rubber ball that you cannot penetrate, and that must have just sliced through it and gone straight up. So, yeah, brutal. I was speechless when it happened. I didn't really know what to say.
Yeah, pretty incredible stuff, Tommy.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Same thoughts. Like the Discord channel just went quiet. Everyone just going, "What the hell's going on?" And no one wanted to talk. Yeah, it just didn't feel like we were in the modern Formula One. This felt like going back to, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years ago, this kind of stuff. Like, we haven't seen fireballs like that in F1. We see people tip over, but like, genuinely, Campy's so right. The halo is not up for debate anymore. You could see how clearly, like he said, that punch through. I don't know. Like, we would be talking very differently. We wouldn't have had a race. We'd be in a very different spot. So we're very thankful that Grosjean literally jumped out and walked away. Unbelievable to walk away from something like that fireball.
And it's hard for us to watch as fans, and that's what we are first and foremost, to see a fireball in the background and then the TV director showing nothing of the crash until everyone is known to be alive, basically, and safe. And with very little information, of course, coming out. I have to mention Ian Roberts and Kevin Van der Meer, those two guys in the medical car, incredible. These are obviously the kind of people who run towards accidents and fires. But just, I mean, thinking, put yourself in their position. You know, that AMG is quick, right? It's obviously not as quick as Formula One cars. So they're coming around 3 just as the fireball happens. So they're in the car, they've seen the fireball, and they're already thinking about how they're going to interact with that scene as soon as they get there. The marshal runs across the other side of the track, and lucky he did, because the other guy from the other side of the crash was just not affecting Romain at all. Even though he was buggering around the pin, we finally got it out and was spraying that foam on there. Man, that Ian Roberts, who is a doctor, not a firefighter, gets in there and, you know, grabs Romain out and tries to settle him down. I just, incredibly shocking footage and hard to watch.
This is what I was talking about last week. F1 gets this stuff right 99% of the time. Yeah. The systems and procedures are in place for a reason because they've got history. And it's awesome to watch when, you know, the other side of it, yes, the crash was horrendous and yes, he got out, but watching the aftermath of it, how it was handled, how it was sorted, everything that went on, there was no mistakes made, there was a clear leadership on ground, there was procedures in place. They got that right. I think there's a few Melbourne road construction workers out there to take a few hints from these blokes, because you guys do nothing and there's 40 of you standing around holding some bloody signs. These guys have cleared a clash, put some more bollards up and ready to race in 45 minutes.
Yep. Yeah.
So good, but it's like, but we got to go racing at the end of the day, and it's it must be tough as a driver though, watching that.
Oh man,
do I really want to go and do this? You know, I wouldn't begrudge them if they said no.
Yeah, really. And if they said no, I think this is we're it for today. Martin Brundle said a good thing about how he would reset himself after watching a big accident like that back in his day. You know, thinking about the law of averages, and it's unlikely to happen to them again. But really, the safety in these cars now is fantastic. You're right. The halo debate has been put to bed. It was already put to bed in my mind with Alonso and Leclerc in 2018. To be honest, with that contact. So look, great, really good. Romain looked terrified, shocked, injured, all of those and more. We don't know, obviously, if he was knocked out and sitting there, but thank goodness he was able to get himself out of that cockpit, because it would have been a very different story if he was passed out for a lot longer. So thank goodness for that. I'm still, you know,
it was brutal.
3 hours ago, and it's still hard to talk about. So yeah, anyway, it's a really great job by everyone on the track. And then it was not a great job, rather, when Perez had an incident and Marshall ran across the track in front of cars. So look, it's all down to individuals, isn't it? And it's very hard. You know, we were saying sometimes Formula One gets it wrong. You know, Michael Masi is making that decision about the crane and releasing cars with the crane still on track versus one person running across the track, trying to do the right thing, but of course, completely, you know, putting everyone in danger, including himself.
He earned his money today. I'll give him a tick. He's done well.
Sorry, I'm talking about the guy who ran across in front of other traffic in Perez's incident, not...
You're talking about Masi.
I was talking about Masi.
You sure you want to compliment him?
No, he did
Today
well
he did well.
We'll have some consistency.
Except for that Kvyat 10-second penalty.
Oh, that was a ridiculous penalty.
What a
Anyway,
incident.
yeah, he's a dud.
We'll get into it. Okay, tell me, T. Let's go through what the race weekend looked like from a TV broadcast point of view.
Well, because we live in Australia, it's on bloody late, so we didn't watch much other than exactly when qualifying started and exactly when the race started.
Yep.
So that's all I can really comment on. Just, again, wanted to reiterate how well the crash was handled. And it's a tough thing, I would imagine, to be in the broadcast booth when this is happening. And I think they handled it pretty well. You can't obviously show stuff before you know if someone's alive and well and those kind of things. So I think when they could, they were showing as much detail because that's what we all want. We want to know what happened. We want to understand. So to be honest, I think they did very well considering how fast the information would have been coming to them, how much they had to decipher and communicate to us. So I'll give them some credit for that. And then later on in the broadcast, on a less serious note, when Simon Lazenby ran up some tea to Martin Brundle because he was getting a bit tired. And apparently Lazenby started by being a bit of a runner and he still can't make a tea according to Brundle. And he then went to tell his exact order on how it should be stirred counterclockwise with the exact amount of sugar, etc.
When
Very
you need to fill
Brundle-esque.
in, when you need to fill in
Yeah.
something.
Can I must admit, I woke up at 1:05 a.m. this morning.
Oof.
First thing I did was jump on the Discord chat and I see a comment from Tommy T. Oh, has Laser got some dirty tips to tip?
You're looking very blonde.
Oh, mate, they are horrible. Oh, very good.
The laser.
Very good.
So, but
And
overall,
special mention to the Haas mechanic with that killer mullet. That is a bit of human just injected right at the right time in that section. That is one of the great mullets.
the greatest haircut in Formula One. As of right now. Well, in terms of the broadcast review then, Tommy T, your score for this weekend?
Let's give it an 8. I reckon it was
Wow, it's
alright.
pretty high.
Pretty high.
Look, I think they could have probably shown the crash a little bit earlier. As soon as everyone's like, all right, Grosjean's out of the car. All right, TV director, enough of the, let's go. Come on, let's just show it. Because there was, then they showed it for the next hour. I get that. But there was, for me, it was a bit too long of a gap.
Well, we're all holding our breath. Yeah.
I'll also just add just why I love this sport so much. Q1, Verstappen went out really early before any car to check that his DRS system was working. Under lights, that Honda motor's the best sounding engine on the grid. And to hear Brundle just commentating it lap by lap with Max's on board with the sound, unbelievable. Under lights, the lights made those liveries just shine in places that they don't normally. That is why we love this sport, and I just go and watch it. Just watch that, minute and a half clip that in Q1. It was just spectacular. That's what we love about this sport. And when they get that stuff right, you don't really notice it until you sit back and you start to appreciate how good these guys are at what they do. So,
yeah, specifically Martin. Martin on fire. That's probably a bad use of term for that, but you're doing really well this weekend. But absolute magic, this guy. And the rest of the Sky Sports team, unfortunately, just doesn't match that. But that's okay. Shout out to Alex Jakes as well, who's leaving F1 TV and got the lead commentary gig with Channel 4. Great for him. Unfortunately, we don't get Channel 4 over here, but he'll be joining the likes of Coulthard and Webber. So if you have access to Channel 4, watch that because it'll be better than the Sky coverage. Let's not joke ourselves. Okay, let's talk about the race, boys, as we're fresh from it, as we always do, team by team. And we'll start at the very back with Racing Point, disappointingly for my fantasy team, as I changed out Renault to them just before. I was like, Racing Point are doing well. We'll put them in. Bloody Lance Stroll, hey, flipping himself over. I'm blaming him and not Kvyat.
On that, I think that was more Stroll's fault than Kvyat's fault.
Yeah, it's Magello all over again.
That was Kvyat. Yes, there was a gap there, and he's entitled to take that gap. What Stroll is not entitled to do is completely cut across and make that gap disappear to the point where whoever could potentially be there has no room, like Kvyat. Now, Kvyat, it was clumsy. It was clumsy from both of them. but Stroll wouldn't have even looked. This kid is he's a dud. He performs 1 week. We said it this week. Come out and perform. Didn't get into Q3. Didn't have the pace of the car. Look where his teammate was, and made a stupid rookie mistake and ended up saying, "Oh, it's not my fault. It's his fault." It's like, give me a break, dude.
Yes, you're not wrong. And does it always seem to happen that every time Otmar is on the pit wall for Sky Sports, something mega goes wrong with the team?
That guy's so unlucky.
I almost feel bad for him. Apart from when he always defends his boss's son, I almost feel bad for him that he seems to be on there. Stroll was saying that in terms of his qualifying pace, it was a inverted commas miscommunication with the pit wall versus when he got out there. I agree with you, Campy. I don't think he really had the feel of the car, although he did some further setup changes. Checo was just driving incredibly well all weekend, all the way through practice and qualifying and the race. The dude is on fire, but this shows. So I keep got to stop using that.
It's lit. It's lit. Use that one.
Oh my goodness, I don't know how I feel about it. You feel saying something like that. But that really goes to show, though, how good a package Seb Vettel is getting himself into for next year. So it really, everything, all the pressure, quite literally, is on him to do that, because really, there's this car that is a lot better than the Ferrari, and he can put all the haters to bed. Hopefully he does that. But Racing Point, really disappointing for them, disappointing for everyone who has their for Fantasy League covered by them. Okay, we'll talk about Haas now. Kevin Magnussen didn't have too bad of a start. Obviously, that it all sort of washed out and didn't go too well for him in the long run. Geez, he would have been feeling it in the garage, wouldn't he? Watching the whole thing go on with Romain. Tommy T, your thoughts on K-Mag for this race?
Yeah. Really tough. Really, really tough. I don't know how you do it, man. You'd be the closest with that guy out of anyone on the grid, being your teammate. But, yeah, he was really positive. You could see when they saw him get out and they were watching the footage back on the big screen, and he was the first one to start clapping, and you could tell he was very happy that it was kind of over and he was safe and they could kind of get back into the flow of the day, I guess, and what he had to do next and get back in the car. I'm just a bit distracted. We've seen a photo pop up, and I've just chucked it in our group message, boys, and you can see this is Grosjean's car. Yep. It's just whited out, and the halo is in perfect tact around just nothing. I mean, I'm sure you guys are going to see these photos in the next couple of days and hours, but really incredible, and that's why he survived, genuinely, because in an old Formula One car without this kind of safety and halo.
Yeah.
I saw a side-on shot of it where it took the brunt and just peeled that thing away from it.
Yeah.
And there's a big chunk out of it, but, geez, the force that thing took and protected the head, unbelievable.
Man.
Yeah, just looking at this photo, Tommy, you're right. It's, incredible bit of safety engineering. You think about, both front wheels, the whole wheel thing just disappeared. Yep. The left-hand front side disappeared down the track, and the right-hand front side disappeared across the ditch, across the service road.
Yeah, it looks like a plane crash. It doesn't look like a car.
You're totally right. Yeah,
it looks like something's plummeted from the sky.
If you didn't know that was a Formula One cockpit, you're absolutely right. It looks almost like a fighter jet. Yeah, incredible. If you haven't seen photos and you're listening or you're watching, we'll maybe chuck this up on the YouTube as we talk about it. But on the YouTube, geez, I sound like I'm on the line.
Mate, you sound like it's 4:45 in the morning.
It's the best podcast we're going to do.
Correct.
Okay, Alfa Romeo, Kimi and Gio. Gio did, I don't know, it was weird. They pitted Gio towards the end and he kind of lost a spot to Kimi. But Alfa Romeo just weren't there this weekend, were they? Kimi generally seems to have a pretty good run at Bahrain, but for this weekend, no, not exciting at all. Campy?
Yeah, he had some front wing damage and he lost, I think they said, about 25 downforce points on his car. So, yeah, but they haven't been anywhere all year. Like, we don't see a lot of them on TV. We only see them when they're fighting each other or
getting
Seb
blue flagged.
or Seb and Kimi continually to find themselves on the track.
Yeah.
All the time.
They pitted heaps. I think all the teams pitted a lot because the tyres, for once, we finally got the race we wanted with tyre wear and tyre management, but unfortunately, we're at Bahrain. I mean, Bahrain is better than Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, not by much.
And it's been a pretty good race over the years at times, but I think it's probably one of those tracks that we could do without, to be honest.
Yeah, well,
we could go somewhere else and do better stuff, but we need Middle Eastern oil money, don't we? So
we need brand new tracks designed to be looking amazing and then not perform at all, and then you go to old tracks like Imola.
I'm getting off topic, but yeah, it's pretty standard
for this podcast.
That's not like you.
I just want to. No, it's quarter to 5.
It's a new precedent.
I just want to get rowdy and just rag on someone. I'm trying to figure out who to rag on at the moment.
Jeez, Campy, we're back next week. You can rag on them then.
Yeah, I look forward to that next week.
You two are right in front of me.
George
Russell warmed up.
George Russell finishing in 12th for Williams. He really saw the track evolution, didn't we, in Q1 with his time coming out for the second time, and it was good enough, obviously, to take him through to Q2. I don't know if you saw this, boys, and if you're listening, you should definitely try and watch this. I think it was on the F1 Facebook page. They did a side-by-side comparison of the Williams, him driving in Bahrain 2019 Williams, him driving Bahrain 2020 Williams. It's almost a 2-second difference, like a completely different car. Huge. And he's doing the same lines and everything else, which goes to show that he is a very good driver as he was early in his career in Formula One last year, but he still hasn't been able to get these points. Tommy T, do you think he'll get any points this year?
I don't think he will. I'm kind of hoping that he doesn't, for the weird sadistic part of me that's like, we've got that Hulk record of him never having a podium. I really would like this to last as long as we can, just because it's fun.
I'll ask Campy to arrange it then, considering he has all things power for Formula One.
You could just prophesy that, Campy, that'd be
great. Say some hallelujahs before everything will be good to go.
I think he will. Probably not this year though.
If you're a passer, you got to have a few affairs too to get some street cred these days.
There it is.
Can I say something about Russell?
No.
I prefer you say something about Russell instead of what else you're talking about.
I've got some serious questions about George Russell's racecraft.
Okay.
I mean, he's put himself in some good positions this year from qualifying. But every time, like his start was the worst start of all time tonight. He dropped back from wherever he started. I think it was 14th or 15th. And was last by the end of the straight.
Yeah.
Shocking start.
Yeah.
He finds himself consistently over the last 5 or 6 races where he's finally starting to race people and be around them consistently. And he continually spins or has some moments for whatever reason. I mean, he hasn't raced really anyone up until the last 7 or 8 races. He's been at the back. He's been a glorified test driver for 18 months. I've got some questions over his racecraft, and is he on a steep learning curve that he's got to get right at some stage, because the opportunities seemingly he's putting himself in the right position, but he's never taking them by the throat and just, bringing it home.
Well, we've seen his racecraft in F2 though. He was incredibly good there, and I just think maybe, as you say, because of being a glorified test driver at the back of the pack for most of his Formula One career, he's just not used to it, right? And it's probably, but I mean, the Mercedes power unit is great. So from a starting point of view, his starts always should be better than the Ferrari power around in the forms of the Haas's and the Alfa Romeos. It was, he really slipped back, didn't he? It was almost like Danny Rick up towards the front. That just horrible start. And of course, Nicholas Latifi doing really nothing mentionable, as always. My favourite Canadian. Thank you for being that. I guess. No, nothing really to comment, is it?
We don't hear from him.
No.
You don't see him. He's a bit like Stroll. He's a bit aloof.
Ghost.
I think it's more, his presence in the paddock is more significant, as in, he's happy to talk to camera, and he seems genuine when he does talk to camera, but because he's at the back so often, I don't think the camera's that interested in being on him, to be honest. That, and he eats himself with tyre things coming off.
He's a super professional dude when he fronts up. Like, he speaks really well. He's super articulate. He's engaging. That's why he's our favourite Canadian on the grid.
Unfortunately, no one wants to hear from the guy coming 14th every week.
Just
or
not
lower.
sure we should have any of those two Canadians on the grid at the moment because they're not bringing enough performance-wise, in my opinion, to warrant their spots.
No,
So
no, they're not at all. You're absolutely right. All right, well, let's talk about Ferrari. Seb just did not have the car under him after the restart, did he? It was
Undrivable.
It was sort of him and Charles had a bit of a tussle, and he got on the radio and he was complaining about being cut across and all that sort of other stuff. And then Charles sort of ended up further towards the front of the pack. Of course, it washed out that he was 10th and Seb was 13th. But for Ferrari, at least Charles got his elbows out a couple of times. He seemed to be making some good moves during the race. But Seb, as we've seen in the most sort of recent couple of races, ends up racing Raikkonen at the back. He's just got a lovely sort of thought and memory of racing Kimi in happier days, so that's where he wants to sit himself. Campy.
Out-qualified Leclerc this weekend. So
it was good to see.
It was good to see. I don't know if Leclerc just had an absolute stinker of a lap or not.
Yeah.
And their relative lap times comparatively over the last 10 races would suggest that Leclerc's stomping him. But who knows? He was really shitty after the first lap.
Yeah.
And I could sort of see why, because the gap was there and he probably shouldn't have left that gap way open. But obviously they'd had conversations about this stuff previously.
Yep.
And the problem is when Leclerc made that dive bomb, which he's totally entitled to do, it actually, because of the way that Seb positioned his car in that corner, it ultimately cost him because he had to go so wide on the exit of the turn that he had to get off the gas and avoid traffic to his left because of what Charles Leclerc did probably pretty cheekily on the right. Now, all he's got to do is position his car a bit more to the right so that Leclerc doesn't have the chance to go up his inside. The problem solved. They've obviously had conversations about it before the race, as he alluded to, and he's probably sick of it, and he's over the year. He just wants it to be done until he gets into a new seat. But I can understand a bit of his frustration because it compromised his whole race.
Yeah.
There's a way you overtake your teammate compared to another racer. You don't compromise them completely. You get past, but you don't really stuff them for the next kind of half a lap.
It's kind of a
where
weird...
he's getting to.
Seb shouldn't be whinging about that stuff. He's a 4-time world champion. And he should be better. He should know better than to give anyone an inch, because if you give anyone an inch at this level, they'll take it a mile. But he's probably a bit woe is me. And he's just looking for excuses to crack it at the moment.
Yeah.
And fair enough, too.
It was a safety car straight after anyway.
Yeah, and it was a mega rant as well. It wasn't just like a short radio message. He went through a couple of corners whilst he was still holding the radio button, trying to bitch and moan about stuff.
Holding the button.
It was actually, his argument is it's the same argument that he had when Kvyat torpedoed in China and went through. It actually, what Kvyat did, yes, there was a gap, and yes, Kvyat's entitled to take it, but when they do that in those positions, they're not taking into any consideration, I'm talking about the ones doing the overtaking move, they're not taking into consideration what is on the outside of the guy that they're overtaking and the compromise that it puts on them. It's a sandwich, and, 3 ways only goes into 1.5 and 2 at times. So I can understand why Seb has those issues that he does, but figure it out.
We're talking about Kvyat and AlphaTauri. Obviously, he got his 10-second penalty, which we spoke a little bit earlier about, saying that it's a bit ridiculous. But he sort of had the door closed on him by Lance, didn't he? Really, in a lot of ways. And again, in my mind, that was very reminiscent of Mugello with Lance and his inability to be spatially aware. I don't agree with the penalty for Kvyat at all.
First lap after a restart, really? I think that's a pretty racing incident.
Yeah, absolutely. But, it has to be said, he was involved with the two things that happened this race, wasn't he?
Both kind of not really his fault, though. The Grosjean one was hardly his fault.
It's just unlucky that he was like, oh, come on, can somebody else be the person that causes a flip or something? And
again, after his qualifying, out-qualified his teammate and, not getting the accolades he deserves when he's actually beaten his teammate.
Yeah. You pointed out before, Campy, he does it, but he does it in a way that's not flashy enough to get recognised. He kind of just sneaks past. Yeah.
And he had a good start off the first start, maintained his position. sorry, he didn't. He got clipped in that, that midfield succession, which made him drop back. But that first incident with Grosjean, that was clumsy from Grosjean.
Yeah.
Diving across how he did. Again, like zero spatial awareness.
Yep.
Probably didn't even think that someone was going to be there.
Yeah.
Could see what Grosjean was trying to do.
Yeah.
But that's not Kvyat's fault.
No.
The second one, he had more of a fault in it, but it's still like, move on, suck it up. That's Stroll being Stroll.
Yeah, racing incident for sure. But Gasly was holding on to the end there. Lucky he didn't pit for new boots, just for the safety car coming out towards the end of the race, though. But he's driving pretty well. I know that Kvyat got him in qualifying, but again, his confidence is clearly there. The car is underneath him. It suits him a lot more. And tracks like this, he's able to sort of dabble in that top 6-7 position, which is what he was doing, if not better than what he was doing last year in Red Bull.
Easy car to drive, though. So
thanks, Karen Horner. Again, why wouldn't you just make the Red Bull easy to drive? Why do you? I don't understand why making it harder is a good thing. Anyway, but it'll be interesting to see with him and Tsunoda. I don't know because we'll talk about Yuki very quickly in the Formula 2 race. He had an incident. He lost the car, and then in the qualifying, I should say, for F2, he lost the car. He got on the radio and whinged and bitched quite a lot. And if you're coming into F1, mate, I wouldn't necessarily be doing a hell of a lot of that.
That's what they all do.
Yeah. So I still don't think he's ready to come up to Formula 1, but
Nope.
He'll be learning from Gasly, which is not a bad thing. I think Gasly actually now has enough experience under his belt to start teaching other people if that's what he wants to do. Okay, let's talk about our boy Danny Rick in Renault. Horrible start from him,
Tough day at the office.
But he managed to get some
great first start from him.
Great. Well, the overtaking that he got done after the second start was pretty epic. The little scrap that he was having with Charles and with Carlos Sainz. As I said, the winner out of the scrap between the three of those guys was Daniel Ricciardo when the McLaren of Carlos Sainz got in front of Charles Leclerc, because that's the seat that he's going to take next year. And the car looking pretty good, the McLaren, it has to be said. But Danny Rick, obviously, he qualified fifth. And then he qualified sixth because he was told he qualified fifth by his race engineer. He was like, yes, this is great. And he's like, oh, no, sorry, Checo just pipped us. You're now sixth. He was like, God damn it. Man. But it doesn't seem to be going well for him at Bahrain, does it? Really, it didn't go well from last year either.
No. Well, and I don't think he was helped by any of the friggin' Renault strategy.
Here you go.
Many times, just get the slower guy out the way. Ocon has consistently just held up Danny Rick for 2, 3, 4 laps at a time for no reason. Get the flip out the way, mate. No one wants you there. You're just holding people up, and compromised both of them when Sainz had fresher tyres behind and managed to get past both. So Ricciardo was trying to make a move on Ocon. Ocon was just being a pleb, and then Sainz managed to get Danny after he was recovering from a move and trying to just sort himself back out, and he was just gone. Ridiculous.
They're
Just
not very
stupid.
quick. They're not very quick in terms of making moves. They're almost risk adverse or too conservative with their strategy sometimes. But then with some strategy calls they make are epic.
Yeah, and then there was this, I think it was like the third pit stop run they did where they brought Ocon out right in front of Danny again. It was like, are we going to have to do this again and sort them out? Took them 2 laps to fix it again, but it's just stupid. Just wait one more lap and just let Ocon pit later. Like, don't do it to yourself.
Here's the issue: we got constructors' championship points at the moment, and that's what's on the table now. I think Danny Rick getting 4th place in the championship would be good if he can end up beating Perez. But tonight was just a frustrating race for Danny Rick. Got the start off the first start, got up to 5th or 4th, made up a couple of positions, beautiful. Now, I understand why Bottas moved from 6th to 4th on the second restart, but ultimately Danny Rick started on the dirty side. Now, he did lock up his tyres on that second warm-up lap. Albon in front of him slowed right down, and Danny Rick locked up trying to do it. And he's struggled to warm his tyres up all year, so I think that's why he got such a bad start in the second time.
Yeah.
But he just lost time everywhere. He lost time at pit stops. He lost time when he was trying to make a move on Leclerc and Sainz got him. And then he lost, 4 or 5 seconds trying to get past Ocon, and then Sainz got past both of them, and it took another 4 or 5 laps for him to pass. He just kept losing chunks of time everywhere, which ultimately cost him that spot against Gasly in the long run on the way home. And that would have been an extra couple of points in the bag, which helps at the end of the year.
Yeah, if everything broke right, he could have been in 5th, where Carlos ended up.
Ocon's shit.
Yeah, it's really. He had one moment of like, ooh, okay, maybe he is coming back. No,
no.
Yeah, we've said this many times. Compared to Hulkenberg, is he any better? Nope. That's it.
I mean, he got close in qualifying this weekend.
He did. Yeah,
very close.
I'd love to know. I'd love to know what the differences in car setup is, because Danny Rick's clearly setting his car up for race pace, which Ocon doesn't have. I don't think they're identical. I think it's probably a hindrance over a 1 lap for Danny Rick, but he's still like 14-1 for the whole year. That's Verstappen v Albon territory, and
it's George Russell.
What's his name? Yeah, I mean that's like Ocon. If I'm Ocon. And the reason why Renault are not going to get third in the Constructors' Championship is because Ocon hasn't done enough with a car that should have got a hell of a lot more points than what he has. So it's only on them. If they had Hulk, would have had an extra £10 million in the bank at the end of this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
decisions. It's
interesting looking back, isn't it? And even Toto Wolff would have to admit that Ocon has not come to the party this year. And as much as Hulkenberg would have value added, to be honest.
Or he has come to the party and he's driving as good as he ever has, but he's just coming up against an A+ driver. And there's only 3 of them on the grid.
Yep. And looking forward to where our boy goes next year, which is McLaren, of course. So let's talk about McLaren. Lando and Carlos had a great race this time for them, 4th and 5th. Some good points haul for them. The McLaren looking pretty strong, except for in qualifying for Carlos Sainz, where he had his issue, and it looked like effectively that someone had just pulled up the handbrake and he was trying to do a mad skid into one. It was just bizarre for him. It would have been a really weird feeling having that right rear lock up and, trying to catch the car.
It seemed like both axles locked and he just spat. It was bizarre.
Yeah, very, very weird. Campy, what are your thoughts on McLaren for this weekend? Because they seem to do pretty well.
Again, qualified horribly like they did last week and then end up, both cars in the top 6, top 7. Astounding from where they were. I mean, you look at Renault's race pace, I'm astounded that they got past them. I understand why they did and why the things happened. They just had the last 2 races, they've had some really bloody good luck with the races come to them. Not because they're driving amazingly or they're doing super well. They've made good starts and just picked up where they should have, and a few DNFs help them out here and there, and away they go. I mean, the cars... I don't think the drivers are driving outstandingly. I think the car's in a pretty good place, but extremely lucky from where they qualified. That is not what's happened all season.
No.
So there you go.
Yep. Yeah. Tommy T.
And Sainz started on soft. He had an option to start on the yellow like everyone else, but he went opposite start on soft.
Yep.
And the soft ended up being a really, really good race style. Yeah. Got 3 or 4 laps less than the medium, but the pace was better the whole time.
Absolutely.
So,
no, I think Lando had a really good race, just keeping his nose clean. He just managed to get in front, stay out of trouble. He stayed clear in his pit windows and those kind of things. Felt like Carlos had to continually overtake the same people over and over and over again, just the way they were pit stopping him, which was going to happen because of his strategy on those softs, but... He had a pretty good race, to be honest. Like he was my driver of the day, Sainz. Yeah. He was ripping through the pack quite easily. He had a couple of really good moves, I think, coming through that. I can't remember what complex, that real tight hairpin, real late braking, just really good Danny Ricciardo kind of moves, like real late on the brakes, just outbrake the guy next to you and just go, catcher.
Yeah, he's good. It's good to watch. Okay, Red Bull, their first double podium since Japan 2018, which says a lot about their second driver, doesn't it? Obviously, Max coming in second and Albon inheriting third from Checo. Max's pace was pretty good this weekend. Very hard to get close to the Mercedes, obviously, but all the way through qualifying and through practice, indeed in practice 3, he was really showing the pace of the Red Bull. Campy, thoughts on Max for the rest of the season? He's got 2 races to go. Anywhere near the front, do you think?
He's just a frustrated animal at the moment.
Isn't
He's
he?
like a caged lion. You know, he is probably the quickest guy on the grid. I mean, I'm biased towards Danny Rick, and I think Danny Rick had the better of him for the 3 years that they were there, and results would back me up, and statistics come at me, but Max is the heir apparent.
Sure.
And he's frustrated because he doesn't have the car to take it to Lewis or Valtteri. But he continually puts himself in those positions. I mean, he flogged Albon in qualifying.
Yep.
It was like 7 tenths.
Yep.
7 tenths, and he was a second a lap quicker. I mean, get rid of that kid. But I just feel, it's frustrating for him because it's going to be the same next year, same car. He's just hanging on for 2022 and hoping that Red Bull get their shit together. Now, what happens in 2022 if they don't?
Yeah.
They're the second or third best car, and there's someone else that jumps up, and Red Bull don't react to the salary cap or the budget as they should have, and the resources that they're throwing into this engine development and the car development and whatever it is, it's not sustainable or cost effective for them. What happens then? He's probably going to be stuck in the Red Bull to 2023 until he can get out of it, chasing a top car and a top drive that people aren't really going to be willing to give up, because when guys are in the top car and they're winning and they're performing consistently, look, it's tough. Hopefully, it's even. He could beat Lewis Hamilton's record hands down.
Yeah.
If he gets in the right car and right circumstances, but it's just frustrating for him. He's just got to show up every week until Red Bull gives him that car.
It's hard, Tommy T, isn't it, to think about 2022, and Red Bull was feeling strong about the remainder of the races for this year and maybe for next year, noting that Mercedes aren't developing their 2021 car anymore. What happens to him if he doesn't get into that kind of team? I mean, I'm hoping that McLaren jump up and, we might even see someone like Lando, surpassing him and being on the road to winning world championships before Max, because it's right place, right time.
Yeah. Genuinely, he could just be in the wrong car for right now if they don't get their crap together. I don't know. There's still a chance that he could get second in the Drivers' Championship if things break right for him and he can beat Bottas enough, but that's kind of all he's playing for now. He hasn't had the teammate to really do much more and challenge for the constructors. I don't know. He seems like a very lost guy. He's just stuck in this situation.
But he said that in an interview before the race. I don't care about coming second. I don't care about coming third. I'm here to win. I want to win. I'm good enough to win.
Yeah.
Give me the car to win. This is like monotonous for me, rocking up and trying my best and driving on the edge, which I do with ease and a consistency that not many people do, and we're still not good enough.
And you've seen him disinterested after races when he's come third on the podium. He's like, I wasn't racing against anyone. I was just sitting there by myself. There's no one to compete with. That's probably down to like Ferrari dropping completely off this year and not having like another set of challenges. But he looks bored as hell, and I don't know if he's going to stick around at Red Bull if this continues and they don't actually show some development towards being the top team.
He'd be hot property for wherever he would want to go. And, of course, the thought would probably be Mercedes, wouldn't it, if anything, in the long run.
It's so hard with new regs. We don't know, but yes.
Yes, but sad for him. Look, good thing for Albon to get a podium, I guess. He should. This is where he should be anyway, is there to pick up the pieces of other people sort of falling off as the rear guard for the Red Bull. But he didn't have a great weekend. As we said, he destroyed his car. Coming out of the final corner, which is not a corner that you see many people put it in the wall, his confidence must just be been getting shaking all of the time from all of these incidents, and then the people like us and the media jumping on top of him going, well, what'd you do that for? Why are you still why are you better than this? Why better than that? It's got to be hard for him mentally, but really, if he's able to get at least another podium, then maybe we will see him staying for Red Bull for 2021, and that'll be Karen's justification to keep him around, which will be hard. Okay, let's talk about Mercedes. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton was in a completely different race tonight compared to everybody else.
He wasn't even trying.
No, you could so tell. But he's still an incredible driver if that's him not trying, and no pressure, right? All that's been released, they've won constructors, he's won his world championship again. No pressure, still absolutely dominates, and even coming into turn one, and you're looking at the replays of Romain's incident, he was completely, as Martin said, he was in a different postcode coming into two, which it just boggles your mind really when you think about it. And then
what staggers me about this guy's driving is the consistency of the placement of the car.
Yes.
Lap to lap. It's so precise. It's every apex hit.
Yep.
It's changing the brake bias, a couple, 2 or 3 times a lap just to get it right. And it's almost like he's playing music. Just, he's in a groove and he's just channeling. He's on train tracks. He's on,
But you can see how much work he does, especially at night races. You can see those steering wheels lit up and you can see how much he's actually doing on the inside. And he nailed both of those starts, absolutely nailed them.
He's absolutely.
I'm getting sick. I'm sick of seeing him win.
This is how we all felt
just because
about.
we want someone different.
And this is how we felt about Michael Schumacher back in the day, and everyone now misses him, looks back on him. So it's going to be interesting when he leaves the sport.
Alonso's better.
Yeah, how many world championships has Alonso got? But that was right place, right time. If Alonso was in a Mercedes, he would be absolutely dominating as well. I feel sad for VB. He really hated this weekend as well. I think he's checked out for this year. But it goes to show again that the Mercedes cannot follow traffic very well. It's designed to be at the front.
And they've got a magnet of some kind in VBs to collect debris, apparently. Shit. That guy's so unlucky.
Said, more bad luck credits going in his good luck bank. It's coming out
next year.
Telling you.
Saving it for next season.
Yeah. Oh, that's why he hasn't mouthed off about Lewis and his stupid vegan diet this year. He's saving it till next year when Lewis is rock bottom and he just punches him when he's on the ground. Rags on him publicly for being a vegan or something. It's going to be great to watch next year's going to be
Campy
awesome.
is the prophet, so
yeah, it's going to be great to be in Australia to watch him win, because I just he's going to do what he did 2018, come out and just absolutely smash it. All right, well, that's the recap. Thank you for sticking with me, boys, with that. I know it's early in the morning. Let's talk quickly about our fantasy league and the names that I have seen to be updated. If you're listening to this podcast, it is very early, so if you're listening in Australia, you might not have even watched the race yet or been able to update the names. But there's a couple here. R. Moxley, I'm just glad Romain is okay. Lucky boy, yes, indeed. That's my favourite one because it is just true. R. Reardon, Checo yourself before you wrecko yourself. I love that. Crofty's crummy comedy. Colin from the US, love that. Thank you, mate. Presently without a drive for next year. Jay Lauder, Josh, well done. Love that. Out for a Sunday stroll, which is true because he was out on Sunday and his name is Lance Stroll.
Yeah.
And White, well done. And Bahrain Pain Train.
Good.
Well, that was us writing that and writing this podcast. The top three, as far as I can tell, are the same. R. Moxley, Jay Moore and Timmy Bowden. Well done to you. And look, thanks very much if you've been talking with us on Discord. As I said, the couple of people in the US and in Canada. I don't think we had many Aussies up with us there, but look, we talk to you from wherever you are in the world and you want to have a little area to talk about Formula One during the race or the week or whatever, jump onto our Discord. In our description below, I should say, the links exist, and we're on Twitter and on Instagram and all of the good places. And feel free to leave us a review. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for staying with us to this long. We're looking forward to next year. As we said last podcast, some cool stuff is coming your way.
Extra shaven and extra white.
It's bringing out the paste.
It's fresh.
That's a
Moontan.
That's a Moontan. But we love it. Hey,
It's been hanging out on a Navy base too.
you got to do it, mate. But boys, at 5:15 in the morning, thanks very much for your time, and thank you to you guys for listening to the podcast. We'll see you next week for some more Bahrain action. Cheers, boys.
Cheers.